Hello and welcome. My name's George, and my channel is all about helping you get the most out of Logic Pro so that you can record and produce your best music in your home studio. In my last video, which is part of a series following the recording, mixing, and mastering of a song called Late Night by Camaro 67, we looked at overdubbing the horns for this song. And in doing this, I ran into a little bit of a problem where you can hear the original live recording of the trombone solo in the room mics and overheads, and when you layer in the overdub trombone solo, they kind of clash a little bit. So I'm going to turn to Stem Splitter to try and solve this issue. So let's dive in and see how it does. Okay, so here's our session, and I'll just mute the overdubbed horns for a second so you can hear in the trombone solo that you can still pick up a little bit of those horns. So particularly in the room mic, you can hear that trombone. And since we overdubbed it, which means there's a different performance that's going to get overlaid over top of this, it's clashing a little bit. And if I unmute the trombone, you'll hear what that sounds like. So you can hear both performances together. Now, if I were to simply mute the room mics, then that certainly helps. But it's still a little bit there, and the rest of it is in these overheads. So if I mute the overheads as well, then it's mostly gone, and I don't think you'll notice in the final mix the rest of it. So normally when I'm dealt with a problem like this, I usually turn to EQ because previously that's kind of all I had available to me, and I would just try and find those frequencies that are clashing the most and reduce them as much as possible. But now that we have Stem Splitter, I'm going to use that and see if I can remove everything but the drums from the room mics and the overhead mics. And I'm hoping that's going to clean everything up and leave room for just that overdub solo. So let's start with the room mics here. And first of all, what I'm going to do is go over here to the little A, which is my comp, and I'm going to export my active comp to a new track. And that way I'm not going to mess with this comp track if I want to go back to it later. And I can just mute that for now. And the next what I'm going to do here is click on my region, and you'll notice I don't have both regions selected just because it won't let me do an edit at the same time. So I'm going to, if I need to, I'll do these separately. So I'm going to right click, go to processing, Stem Splitter, and then I'm just going to select the drums, and I'll select other just to see what appears on there, but I'm not actually going to use that track, and hit apply. Okay, there we go. So it applied the Stem Splitter. So let's zoom into our solo here. So this should just be just the drums now. Still has some of the congas in there, but that's okay. And then others, so this is what it took out. So that's great. So it isolated out that trombone solo. So we can either mute or delete that track. And this is what we're going to use as our room. And let me just open up my mixer, and I'm going to copy over these plugins. Actually, why don't we bring this down to minus 25, which is the level that we had our previous rooms at. And then let's copy over our channel EQ and our mix rack. And let's rename this room, let's say ISO drums. Okay, now let's see how that's sounding in context. Okay, so much better, but there's still a little bit of that trombone happening, and that's mostly in these overheads. So let's take a look at those. Right, so let's do the same process for this. So once again, I'm just going to export the comp to a new track. So that's for the left, and let's do the same to the right. And let's do that same thing. Right click, stem splitter is there because I used it recently, or you can go down to processing, stem splitter. And let's just go ahead and just select the drums. In this case, we don't need to bother to hear anything else. Okay, and let's go ahead and do the same thing for the right side. Just do drums. Okay, great. So now let's do a little comparison of that. So we have the original overheads. With that trombone in there, and now the stem splitter overheads. So no more trombone in there, just the drums and a little bit of the congas as well. So that's all great. Now I just want to organize this a little bit better because now I'm left with a whole bunch of tracks and it's a little bit messy. So what I actually want to do is I'm going to add these tracks back to these take folders that I have. So I'm actually going to rename the regions themselves so I know what this is. This is actually take 7. I'll call this isolated, and let's do the same thing here. Take 7, isolated, and why don't we rename the rooms too? So I can delete this track. I can delete this track. I can delete that track, and I can delete this one as well. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is just make sure that this is set to overlap, and then I can simply drag this on top of my take folder, and there it is now. And I'll do the same thing for this track as well as this track. So now let's get rid of these. So now basically everything is as is originally, and let's have a listen to that. There we go. So it's still there a little bit faintly, but a lot cleaner and much more manageable. If I want to get really nitpicky and if it shows up later in the final mix, then I can go dive a little bit deeper and see what other tracks it might be hiding in. But for now, I'm happy with that. The one thing I am going to really do is the only really area where this was an issue was in the trombone solo. The rest of the sections, since the overdubs were the same parts as before, if they blend together, it doesn't really clash and it doesn't make a difference. So what I actually want to do is I'm going to keep the original room up until this trombone solo. So for example, I'm going to use take 7, basically from here until where my original edit was. And I'm just going to zoom in and do that here as well. So this can start right on that solo, or find a kind of nice spot. That's probably going to be good there. And let's do that. And let's just make sure that that's sounding okay. Actually, that trombone kind of comes in a bit early. So maybe we can cut it right here. And let's check the end. Maybe around here. Great. And let's do the same thing for those overheads as well. And then we'll make sure that in the mix itself that it all sounds good. So let's actually copy those same kind of edit points. So roughly there is where it's going to start. And there's where it's going to end. And we'll just go in and fine tune that. That's good there. And that's good there. And now let's do the same thing in the left overhead. Okay, now let's listen. Well, let's listen with the rooms and overheads isolated first. Okay, and now let's listen with everything to make sure that that's not too abrupt. Great. So, you can hear the bass drop off a little bit, but it's not super dramatic in the rest of my mix. And I find overall it sounds kind of a bit fuller and nicer with the unisolated rooms and overheads, so with the bleed from the other instruments. So that's why I wanted to keep that for the rest of the song. And then just in that problem area of the trombone solo, that's where I'm going to use the isolated mix, but everything else we'll leave as is. So I hope you found that helpful. That's the first time that I've used the stem splitter in that manner, and I think it worked really well. So I'll definitely probably be using that in the future when I have similar problems like that. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave those in the comments below. And I also want to thank you for all your likes and subscribes. And if you want to improve your workflow in Logic Pro, don't forget to download my free Ultimate Logic Pro Starter Pack. This includes my Logic Pro hotkey cheat sheet with all the most common keyboard shortcuts in a printable PDF right at your fingertips. It also includes my audio recording checklist to make sure your audio recording sessions go flawlessly, my mixing guide with all the most common Logic Pro plugins, my gear guide if you're just getting starting out and want to know exactly what to get for your home studio, and lastly, my Logic Pro session templates to help you get up and running as soon as possible. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you in the next one.